You have two guys giving your. This is hilarious.
That's genuinely insane.
Oh, it's gonna be fun. All right.
Is it on me? Yes. Oh, thank God.
Like these from the back.
Yes.
Oh my God, there's so many of these.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a teacher. Which I want months ago.
It's adventures this time. What's up? Oh yeah. When I was like, it's a go right to make they both. Wow, it's actually that line probably sold. Like, I think just that line actually. Maybe.
I know. I was.
But isn't it cool that everyone in this been debating scene?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, it's just like.
With the other two kids.
What is this show? You guys watched it? Never watched it. Why? Like on Reels. Have you never seen it? It's like that's a stupid nickname. But Belle is right there. Alright, let's make it.
Alrighty, guys.
Easy.
Welcome to the Novice Finals of USUDC 2025. Congratulations to every team for making it this far. Great job. I'm Tanvir. I'll be chairing this round. Very excited for it. Great motion. With me on the panel, I have to my right.
This is your.
Oh, hi. I'm Pranav. Congrats. Oh, no preferred pronouns. Congrats, Belle.
Arjun's here they. Congrats. Good luck.
Belle, she, her, congrats.
Also, no pronouns. Congrats. Good luck.
Fantastic. Prime Minister, you have the floor. Here you go.
Hi guys, my name is Michelle, she, her pronouns, speaking first. Verbal PIs, please, just go ahead. Now. Okay. Is everyone ready?
Yep.
In this speech, I'm going to prove one thing, hopefully very well. It is physically incapable for Susannah to live a normal summer, irrespective of any of her incentives to do so. And I think because of this fact, and because Susannah is aware of this fact, that's how we're going to win this round. First on the frame, what are Susannah's incentives? I think first of all, I think we have to make it clear that Susannah will die no matter what, given the fact that she already gives up, given the fact that she knows her cancer diagnosis is terminal, she must die. What does that mean? Number one, she wants the most personal fulfillment possible, and I want to characterize that even if she wants to act rationally, she is ultimately an irrational actor, given that she's literally about to die very, very soon. And number two, I think she wants the most fulfillment for her children and also Belly and the rest of the family. Now, I think another note on the incentives is that although she wants her children to be happy, I think they're just a personal force telling you to prioritize your own self and telling you that her happiness is derived from her children's happiness as well. And number two, I think this necessarily means that she just wants to maximize the amount of time to be with her children, essentially, because mothers are not selfless actors, because she has raised them since she was very young. So how will this explanation happen? I think number one, this is a very close family matter between Conrad and Jeremiah. But I want to note secondarily that the children already know that she has cancer. They're under the assumption that her cancer treatment was successful, but therefore this will likely be revealed in a very tough decision that's going to be very dramatic, very emotional, but very open, which means that she's going to be open to dialogue. She's going to be open and explaining why she had done this and why at the beginning of summer this is likely going to be revealed. So what are our main two arguments? We're going to prove guilt and paranoia. But first on guilt, what is the problem? The problem is that Susannah will be very, very guilty that her children do not know that she has a cancer, that she is going to die in summer for a couple reasons. Number one, I think right now she knows that her children are under the illusion that her chemotherapy is working, which means that simply she is lying to her children. Number two, her children believe summer to be good based upon this line. The only reason their children are allowing themselves to have a nice summer once again is because they are convinced that their mother's chemotherapy session is working. And number three, I think this necessarily means that she just has to maintain the lie throughout time. So this isn't just a one-time lie. It's a lie that's maintained throughout summer and throughout even before that. But what does that mean? I think that Susannah feels a lot of guilt, and I want to note that this is worse on their side of the house because the backlash from guilt is so much more detrimental when it is revealed from external factors. And I think the reason for this is because Susannah also knows her kids very well, which means that she knows that Conrad has very unhealthy coping mechanisms. In the show, this manifests when Susannah doesn't tell them during summer, and Conrad goes into this deluded state where he's now an alcoholic, where he's now terrible to women, where now he's quit football and he's no longer a good student. I think at the point in which Susannah has raised Conrad for so many years of her life, she's likely aware that her children will not cope well with this decision, and therefore she's going to feel an immense amount of guilt. I'll take the point.
This info slide never mentioned the show The Summer I Turned Pretty. We could only debate purely off the extrapolations we make from the info slide. For all we know, this is entirely a hypothetical situation.
Okay.
And everything you said just now is an assertion and not structurally proven.
Sure, that's fine. I'll buy that. The problem is that a rational mother who has known her children for 18 or however many years of their life is likely going to know that they're going to cope in a very, very bad way. But number two, I think necessarily this means that Susannah is going to be have a lot of paranoia. I think there's many ways in which Susannah is scared that her kids will find out without her being the specific person to be the messenger. Number one, she has already told Adam and Laurel. This necessarily means that number one, we know that Laurel has a child named Belle, right? So this necessarily means that if she has told other people, there is just a rational likelihood that they are allowed to tell their children. And there's number two, there's just physical signs of exhaustion that someone going through terminal illness must present. This means that Susannah is unable to attend events, normal summer happenings, going to the beach because her hair is falling out, or she is just physically exhausted because her cancer is literally killing her from the inside. I think that necessarily means that there has to be some amount of physical exhaustion that is present, which means that she's going to be paranoid that her children are going to pick up upon this physical exhaustion. And I think thirdly, there's going to be a necessary behavior and mental change because of this fact. If Susannah knows that she's going to die, she's going to try and spend time with her kids. Under normal circumstances, her kids will not prioritize this because there are high schoolers who probably have a normal incentive to fuck around, or maybe they're gonna develop a budding romance, whatever. This means that if Susannah is so trying to change her behavior in a way to convince her kids to hang out, they're gonna think that something is slightly wrong. What is the solution on our side of the house? The solution on our side of the house is that if she just tells her children right now, she will not be paranoid and she will not be guilty. What are the impacts of guilt and paranoia? Number one, firstly, is the most tangible impact in the round is just that Susannah gets more time. I think even if this is sad time and even if this is hurtful time, I think humans innately just want comfort at the end of their lifespan, and this is the most tangible impact, the only thing we can prove. Because you can wish for your children to be happy, right? Susannah can be under the impression that maybe her children would be happier if she doesn't know. Maybe she wants one normal summer, but she doesn't know whether that will actually happen. The only thing she can attain for certain is the amount of time that she has. Number two, I think this just means that Susannah died with her family knowing that they are prepared. She's able to see the response. She is able to be the one to comfort her family. I think when that agency is placed upon the actor themselves, they're necessarily going to be more comforted and going to be more happy. And number three, I think secondarily, that means that Susannah can just tell the kids all the things she wanted to say. And number three, that Susannah's time is just more enjoyable. Because even if she wants happiness for her kids, the paranoia and guilt will mean that the interactions she would have on their side of the house would be worse anyways. Because she is dealing with this paranoia, because she is dealing with this guilt, the interactions that would have appeared normal on their side of the house doesn't actually manifest. Quickly then, I want to prove Also, why Susannah doesn't really care about this budding relationship between Belly and Conrad. I think the issue is that obviously she wants this to work this out, but I think that like she is a rational actor and she knows that these children are only juniors in high school, summer's annual, and she also has another kid, which means there are many competing incentives and therefore romance literally is not a big deal to this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Fine speech. Opposition, you have the floor. Also, please introduce yourself at the beginning of your speech. I forgot to ask you guys for introduction before us. Oh yeah, thank you.
You're not. I'm only quick, see why. You good? Two clarifications I want to start with at the top of the speech. First, I think it's correct for CG to point out that we can't cite the show cares. So when they say that like, oh, we already know you have cancer, we just don't know if the treatment worked out or not. I think number one, like we can't extrapolate based on that. But number two, I think like even if they do know, we're gonna assume you're able to hide it. Otherwise, if it's unduly revealed towards like the middle of the summer, I don't think that's like possible for us to debate. So I think we just have to assume she's able to hide it at least until the end of the summer. Otherwise, literally the day is not able to happen. Okay, two arguments then I want to talk about. I think this is going to refute all of what you get out of OG. First on why this is, I think, better for the children, but secondly on why I think this is like just better for like Susannah as a person. I want to know that I think I agree with OG's framing of how like her priority is probably the children's well-being. I think as a parent, a lot of the times you value your children's own like happiness and security over yourself, even if you do have like counter incentives, right? Which is to say that often when you can't afford food, you know, you tell your kids, I'm not hungry, I'm actually full already, here, have the rest of my meal. I think parents tend to prioritize their children. That probably whoever gets the better outcome for the kid is probably what like Susannah cares about most of the debate. Okay, then the baseline for this argument is really, really simple. Knowing that your family has cancer and is dying is just very, very distressing for you, and it's something you cannot physically separate your knowledge of them from anymore. That's to say, the moment I hear that Susannah is dying and she's going to be dead in like 2 months, there is no way I'm able to dissociate this fact from her. Two things under this argument then. The first is that to say that the kids have a lot of other things going on in their lives. I think Susannah, as their parent or a close friend, probably cares about. So, like for example, the fact that Conrad and Belly are starting to dating and they literally just started shows it's a very unstable, very volatile part of the relationship. The fact that they probably have to focus on this at the moment because that's our kids' biggest concerns at the moment, right? Like if you throw in like, oh, I'm dying, by the way, this literally like derails the entire relationship. I think this also is a big deal, given the fact that these are close family friends. You spent every summer together, you have grown up together. She cares about the children, and the children care about her, and this works across both families. They've known each other their whole lives, and I think there's a heavy investment from all actors in the round. But I think as a parent, you probably want your child to have a happy relationship. Like she probably thinks that Belly is really, really good for Conrad and vice versa. I think it goes beyond just the dating thing. Which is to say that her 2 children, Conrad and Jeremiah, have just finished their 3rd year of high school, which literally means they are entering senior year and they have other things to deal with. Things like college applications, spending time with their friends before they have to move out for college. There's a lot of competing things that are going on in their children's lives. I don't think Susannah wants to take away from this by bringing on her own issues onto this. And I want to know if this is true given the own framing that OG tells you. Because I think that when you tell your kids you have cancer, I think the priorities of your children probably have to shift to accommodate you instead, right? Literally, OG tells you that the only reason why these kids feel comfortable doing things like going around dating and exploring with their personal lives and growing as individuals is because they don't know that their mom has cancer, which goes to show that they probably have other priorities that lie in the moment. And Susannah is able to understand that the kids, given the choice, rather spend their time doing these sorts of things. These are the things that are materially and immediately important to them. And I want to note the importance of the time frame too, which is to say, I think grieving is a really, really long process. It's not something that you fix in 2 months just because you know that your mom has died. It's something that you deal with through the entirety of your life. But what is going on in the immediate time frame? So things like the relationship issues that they're dealing with, things like college applications. These are things that often only occur within this 1 year like time frame. And if you miss this time frame, there are like long-term consequences for you later down the line. They also tell you about this idea of like betrayal, how like they're gonna find out eventually, well, like obviously, and then like you're gonna feel like really hurt at the end of this. But firstly, I think that Susannah's priority priority as a parent is probably to do things like prioritize their future. I don't think she wants to feel like she has to burden them with something that they literally cannot change, which is the sense that even when you tell them like, hey, I have cancer, there's literally nothing that they can do to convince her to, get the treatment or to like find a new way around it. And that's probably why she only told the adults in this scenario, because they probably understand this and they're probably able to deal with this in a more emotionally mature and stable way. But secondly, I think all parents lie to their kids all the time and like are fine with taking this betrayal later down the line because they recognize the importance of the issue at hand. Which is to say that often when parents are going through things like economic issues or going through issues of divorce, you don't go to your kids and tell them all these issues and be like, here's what's going on because I don't want you to be in the dark. But it's because they understand that kids have other priorities and it's your job as a parent to deal with them, not to shift the burden onto your children, especially when they're very young, when they're very vulnerable. They're probably not able to tolerate this well immediately when given everything else that is happening to them. I think you cause a lot of undue stress onto these children because they literally are not able to do anything about the ultimate fate of their parents. I'm going to weigh this very clearly. I think we can have grieving on both sides of the house, which is to say even after your parent dies, or even after Susannah dies, you're still able to process that. I think that you can have that on both sides of the house. Whether or not this was like actually effective, I think it's really a question of what Susannah believes. I think she's probably more likely to believe that it's more effective on their side of the house, on our side of the house. Before we move on, I think the point.
Yeah, the problem is that if grief happens irregardless, if it happens later, then they're also going through senior year. And in fact, they have to grieve more aggressively because they just found this information out. So I think it's worse on your side of the house.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in the second argument here, which is why I think you get like better, like I think why you're able to grieve like more easily on our side of the house. The second one is about like how the time you have with your parents is very valuable and like kind of that whole thing. Okay, I think Susannah's probably gonna try to optimize her time for lasting month on both sides of the house, which is big because you know you're going to die, and I think her parents are like the other parents in the emotion are probably able to help arrange like meetings and that kind of stuff, right? Number one, I think what changes here is that you're able to hang out with your kids on our side of the house without fundamentally changing their behavior and their take on the world. Which is to say, when you have cancer and you tell people you are literally dying, the way they act around you fundamentally changes in ways you cannot control. So they think you are fragile. They feel like, oh, I have to be really I have to step around like glass or this kind of person. And it just changes the way that you interact with your children. I think as Susannah, you don't want your last interaction with your children ever to be this one where they're just kind of like, oh, my mom's dying. Like I have to be really careful what I say. I think she wants to experience them in their organic, in their natural way. I think there's this constant feeling of this looming feeling of urgency, anxiety, and hopelessness because she's fighting this battle that she can never win. I think that taints the amount of remaining time you have with this person. I think on competitively on our side of the house thing, you actually get organic relationships and you get organic time, organic bonding because the children are close and I think they're going to try to spend time with their parent. Generally, I think this is how you actually get personal fulfillment, right? I want to note that, again, they say that the children would otherwise want to hang out, wouldn't want to only going to hang out with their mom on their side of the house because otherwise they do other things. And I think this shows that the feeling that you get when you pressure these kids to hang out with you is you have this feeling of guilt because even if you spend time with them, it's this idea where it's oh, they're only spending time with you because they know that I'm dying, not necessarily because they actually care about me and they want to spend time with me. But our side of the house, when you have these hangouts with your children, let's say you hang out a bit less. At the very least, you know it's because they're doing it out of their own volition, that they genuinely care about you. And I think this is where we break the whole thing about the type of guilt that you get and how you process through trauma. Which is to say that I think kids now in these last 2 months, they remember Susannah as this vibrant person who was full of life, someone who was not dying. And sure, maybe they were she's somewhat tired, right? But they don't know that it's because of terminal cancer. So I think this is how you're actually able to process grief, which is your last memories of this person aren't these terrible, awful memories, which is stuck in bed in the hospital every day. So you remember her as this person who was vibrant, who was fighting. And then that's actually how you're able to process grief because this is how you remember them at the end. I think I don't think there's a point in grieving with someone while they're still there with you. I think you ought to take the time to appreciate what you have with them. I think this is only authentically possible in our side of the house. You don't have these looming, constantly awful feelings of grief and worry and anxiety that you ultimately cannot do anything to fix. I think it's very evident also that you have, as a parent, you're gonna prioritize your children's well-being over anything else. I think it's very hard to do that when you feel like every hangout with them is coerced and is pressured, and you feel like you're derailing them from the other very timely emergencies they have going on in their life. Incredibly proud to oppose.
Thanks, Leader of Opposition. Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
Please bear with me. I'm a bit sick, so if I just start coughing, you can probably see more. I'll probably be fine. Okay. Verbal POIs. Everyone's ready. Oh, right. My name is Jayesha. She, her pronoun. Okay, I think that's all. Nice. At the point in which Susannah has reached such a terminal stage of cancer where no amount of treatment can really help her. Her hair is falling out. She's going to be so physically tired. Her cells are literally eating her from the inside out. This is not something that you can easily hide from your children. This is not something that you can easily hide from the people around you. So a lot of their characterization on how her children are just going to have these like weird hang out with her because they want to hang out with her, but then gonna feel regret, doesn't actually engage with the case that Michelle gave you. It's the point at which this woman is literally dying from the inside out. It is unlikely that she's gonna be thinking completely properly. She's gonna be thinking about how she can maximize the time with her children because she literally feels a life escaping her body, right? So it is very, I'm not really convinced by the idea that, like, look, Susannah cares more about this romance between Conrad and Belly more than literally spending time with their mother who is literally dying. Because we tell you a few things here. We tell you that she's going to feel an immense amount of paranoia because she has to lie about every single thing she's doing. Her children, who have known her for 18 years, are going to ask, Mom, why is your hair falling out? Mom, why can't you get out of bed as fast as you used to? She's going to be constantly lying to them. Yes, obviously this lying is something that parents do all the time. The difference here is that she's so physically tired and so physically dead that every single lie that she has is only compounding on the next. She's going to feel so physically guilty. It is a lot harder to lie when your body is literally eating itself from the inside out. It is, and even in the case they gave you the examples of like maybe my mom lies to me about not having enough money. I'm sure she feels guilty as shit about that too. That is not a good thing, right? We don't want this kind of relationship. I don't think Susannah wants that kind of relationship either. Because at the point in which she's a second guess every single thing she's telling her children. She probably doesn't want the last summer, the last good time that she has with her children to be full of lies, to be full of paranoia, to be full of guilt. Because not only does she have to lie, she also has to rely on the people that she's already told. She's already told Adam. She's already told Laurel. These are people who are going to start acting differently. They're all living in a summer house together. This is an insane amount of proximity. Every child, humans are inherently social creatures. We notice when our 18 years of summers look slightly different this time because mom can't get out of bed and Adam and Laurel are crying in the bathrooms and I can hear their sobs every single night. You're going to notice these differences happening every single day. So the children are going to find out, and the difference being they're going to find out in subtle ways. They're not going to fully understand the situation. And the problem with Susannah is that she's going to feel this immense amount of paranoia and this immense amount of guilt, which is why this is the tipping point. The idea that she's going to feel this amount of paranoia and guilt, as Michelle's already mechanized to you, is why she has the incentive to tell her children at the start of the summer rather than the end. Because we already told you why she wants to maximize the amount of time with her kids. Because yes, moms want their children to be happy, but moms are also really, really selfish. Your mom wants to keep you cradled. She wants to keep you close to her because she's literally dying. She's limited time with you. She wants to tell you the lessons that she would have told you when you were 30, but she can't because she's literally going to die. She wants to have this time with you. The difference is when you know that there's a budding romance going on between this Belly and Conrad, I think mothers inherently know that look, these budding romances take a lot of time. She's also in her own relationship with her husband. She's probably aware that these new romances are infatuatory and she knows how much work gets put into relationships. So I think this is actually an added incentive to tell her children because she would want to spend more time with Conrad because instead of him spending time with Belle. Because she wants to have her be the center of attention because she actually wants her children to be happy. So the idea of grief is going to be worse on their side of the house. I don't think that is necessarily true because she's aware that look, I want to be there for my kids when they're grieving so I can provide them the tools and I can tell them that honey, it's going to be okay. I don't want them to go through it alone. At the point in which I care about my children and I care about the way that they grieve and I've known them for 18 years, I probably want to be there and talk to them and explain to them why I've chosen to make this decision. I probably want to talk to them and explain to them why I've undergone this process because it is a lot worse for a mother to imagine their child grieving alone rather than me being there for them to have a shoulder to cry on. So at the point in which they cannot prove to you why grieving is much better alone, I think they lose this debate because I think they already concede that it's going to be a shock. It's going to be so sudden. But we've already proven to you why the children are likely to find out anyways, likely to find out through other means because of her immense amount of paranoia and guilt. But when they do actually find out that she's foregone treatment, they're going to feel an insane amount of betrayal. So
automatic reaction is instead of being like, oh my God, my mother is going to die in the case that you tell her at the start of the summer, it's going to be, she did not tell me for months. I am angry with her. It's going to manifest in anger on their side of the house rather than manifesting in love and in sadness, because their first reaction is going to be, I can't believe you didn't tell me for this long on their side of the house, versus I can't believe that you're actually dying. I want to maximize the amount of time I have with you. Because what is the comparative? On their side of the house, when you don't know that your mother is dying, but she's acting kind of off and she's kind of hiding in her room a lot, you're either going to be like quite confused, but go out about your day, or you're gonna like start confronting her, you're gonna start bothering her, you're gonna try and be confused. Your relationship with her is going to be strained. In the case that you find out, yes, it is a shock. Yes, you feel an immense amount of grief, but it is much better for you to feel the immense amount of grief when your mother is there for her. You can cry in her lap and you can understand and talk to her about the things that she went through. So I think the idea that like, oh, you're gonna like not spend time with her and you're gonna like only spend time with her because she's dying, I think this is like crazy incentive analysis. Because look, I don't really give a shit whether or not my kids spend time with me because I'm dying or if I'm not dying. I care that my kids are spending time with me at a bare minimum. I want to talk to them. I want to feel them close to me. In fact, I would probably be pretty happy if my kids spend more time with us. And at the point in which they already concede that they're willing to bite the bullet of having Susannah spend less time with their kids while she's literally dying and has like no time on this planet, I think they automatically lose this debate. If they agree that we get more time, if Susannah gets more time with her kids on our side of the house, I think we automatically win, because this is like a clear benefit to Susannah and how she actually conducts the rest of her life. Because at the point in which she even gets like a few more hours, a few more days with her children, she's gonna feel far more fulfilled, and she's gonna be far less like guilty and sad about the things that she could have done, because she's always going to be thinking, how can I leave my children into the life that they're going to have when I'm not here anymore? That is the comparative, and that is what they cannot contend with. So what have we actually proven to you on government? We told you why Susannah gets more time with her kids on our side of the house, because you literally have a clear incentive to spend more time with your mom if you know she's not going to be here anymore. We told you why she feels far less guilty. We told you why she feels far less paranoid. I think there's no way for Op to win if they're already conceded that they get less time with their dying mother. I'm so proud to propose.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Deputy Leader of Opposition, you have the floor. Here.
Okay, all right, I'm start my first word. All right, as opening opposition, we are proud to oppose this motion that she would review her diagnosis at the beginning of summer rather than the end of summer. And I'm going to go into a little bit of refutation from their side, and then go into a bit of an extension about like subconsciously, like how Susannah is probably feeling in this like moment with her recent diagnosis, and then like weigh the sides, because I mean, like, I think, you know, grief is obviously going to happen on both sides of the house, but weigh like, what does Susannah as the actor herself prioritize more in this situation? Yeah, so we hear from their side of the house, you know, basically like, I think that entire like 7-minute speech was just Susannah as a very loving and like a very loving mother of 2 sons is just gonna be like, I just want more time with my children and take them away from their friends, their lives, their experiences, you know, their summer, their senior year, you know, like all these, I want more time because me, I am important. Okay, I think they characterize moms as being like selfish. I think, obviously we obviously refute that, being like they are very selfless. But okay, going into a little bit of my extension, talking about like, okay, subconsciously Susannah has received this diagnosis. She's probably still in disbelief and shock internally. She needs time to deal with that personally before even like telling her kids. Okay, so like we hear the argument on their side that oh yeah, moms are selfish. They want to be the center of attention, and they want to help them grieve like immediately, like during these 2 months of like, keep in mind, this is a recent diagnosis. How can her as a mom help her kids grieve when she hasn't even processed it herself? How can she, like, she doesn't, like, this is life-changing information. I'm going to die in 2 months. Like, what do I do in this situation? Okay, I, after Susannah, am probably internally, like, even though, like, I'm like, okay, like, I need to be strong for my kids, whatever, but, like, I'm still in shock. I don't know what's the next step. How do I even tell my kids this piece of crucial information? Like, yeah, sure, like, there's paranoia about, like, it getting out. I want to be able to, like, have the time to tell them in the most meaningful way as possible. And this might require like a month, 2 months of time, you know, like if, like, because I don't want to just rush the information. Like, I haven't even processed it. No, right now, I haven't even processed it myself, and I'm like rushing it to tell them, like, oh, and like, so she needs time to process, and then like, she like knows that she needs to be strong, and then it takes time to build up. Finish, like, okay, I received this diagnosis. I'm gonna be strong for my kids. Here we go. But like, you need like subconsciously, she does need time to process. Then she's very stubborn and strong-headed, so I think she's gonna remain in this, and then so that kind of talks about like she's a normal human being. Okay, she's got to have time to process, and she can't help her kids grieve through this process unless what's up?
Even if I, as a mom, am a rational actor 99% of the time, if I choose that I will die in 1 month or whatever X amount of time I have left, I am probably a person first before I am a mother.
Yeah, you're a person first before your mother, but I think the argument is that like when you become a mom, for a lot of people, I'm not gonna, like, obviously not for everyone, your kids take your priority. A lot of times, like, you know, like there's like the would you rather, like, some people can when you're having birth and you're like complications and whatnot, like, I would rather my kid live on rather than me. Okay, so like these like types of arguments, like moms, yes, they like, she's still thinking about herself in this case subconsciously, like, yes, I need time to process, and this is through a subconscious effort, but she's going to like consciously make the effort to prioritize her kids, not take them away from their friends, etc., etc. Yeah, and then they also talk about like their children are gonna find out, you know, like they're super tired, you know, like we're gonna tell you that this is late stage cancer. She's gonna need obviously extra rest and stuff like that, but it's not every waking moment that she's in absolutely excruciating pain. I think this is an extreme characterization. There are also medications to help with her pain symptoms. Like, you know, she's gonna need extra rest, but like there are things to mitigate like what she's feeling. Like, yes, there's no treatment for it, but there are symptom mitigators that she's going to be able to take to not always feel horrible. And like, yeah, her children are going to find out. We think like this is less likely as the case, you know, like as a high schooler, like I don't think I pay as much attention to my my parents, what's going on there. Like they tell me something, I'm like, yeah, sure. You know, they're busy. They have their own priorities. They're looking at, like, they're doing other things. They're focusing, oh, like college apps, summer, like the beach, you know, like all these different kinds of things. So yeah, and so then we have to prove that like grieving alone is better, but I don't think we have to do this at all. I think we have to prove from Susannah's standpoint that she thinks that this like she will weigh this as the lying and the guilt is going to be worth it for her kids to enjoy their summer, to have a normal experience, and to build, like my partner said, these organic relationships and like organic moments of like the last, like she knows it's going to be like probably their last memories together, but they're getting to experience this in the fullest capacity. Because like, okay, they're like, more time is good. Well, we think quality over quantity. Okay, like you're having these good memories. If you have a bunch of memories and they're just like overshadowed by like, Mom, are you okay? Mom, like, are you gonna, you're just like, how are you feeling? You know, like, I think we, like we talk about a little bit about like how when she reveals this info, it's going to lead to people treating her differently. Like they're going to think that it's like glass that's like going to shatter immediately. But as Susannah herself, she's probably like wanting to, like, these are her last months on earth. So she's going to want to feel like a normal human being, not that she's being coddled. And like, through like if you have like all this time and like your children are just trying to coddle you, you don't feel like the parent in a sense anymore. You know, you feel like your children are trying to like be the parent for you, like they're trying to be there, they're trying to be more mature than they are, and they're losing a lot of time, losing a lot of quality time together. Yeah, and so we think that like her, as Susannah, her judgment is going to be clouded subconsciously just by like by her internal like shock and disbelief that this is happening. And also like she knows that she's dying. She's going to be more intentional with her kids, spend more time with her, and she doesn't want her kids to do this out of guilt, and then have the diagnosis overshadow their memories. So like on a weighing level, we think that like, sure, like this lying and guilt, we acknowledge that it's probably going to be there, but it's not going to be like the overweighing like burden on her. Instead, it's going to be like, I want my kids to feel normal. I want them to have a good summer. And so like ultimately it's outweighed by her love and her priority for her kids. I'm proud of us.
Thank you, GLO, member of council.
Resistance.
Two extensions from closing government. Firstly, on why we would have been more likely in convincing Susannah to actually get treatment and extend her life to some extent. And secondly, on why the kids would have made far worse choices within the summer in ways that affected the rest of their life that Susannah could have prevented if she actually just told them about her treatment. First extension then on why we would have actually convinced Susannah to get treatment. Because notice crucially, the Infoslide says that she has late stage cancer and she's actively denying herself a treatment option that could have extended her life to some extent. So we're going to prove why she would have been more likely to take that treatment option on our side and why that actually would have extended her life to some extent. To begin with. Firstly, I just want to talk about the psychology of cancer patients. We think when you find out that you have late stage cancer, your brain goes towards the worst cancer stories that you've ever heard of. People who have died with no improvement from treatment options, people whose life was ruined by treatment to begin with. But often, you as an individual don't want to give up on your life. You're always searching for some form of hope. You want to be able to spend more time with your children. You want to be able to live a longer life. This is just human instinct, but your mind races towards these worst stories because of the way that you're just paranoid within these situations. We think the issue then is that the people that know about her diagnosis right now can't provide her any form of hope. So now, usually doctors often have to be incredibly rational in the way that they present treatment options to you. So if there is a new innovative treatment option that has some potential of actually increasing your lifespan, they're very scared of giving you a lot of the benefits of it because they don't want to be held accountable if this treatment option ends up hurting you a lot. Doctors have to put on this really rational front because that's just the nature of their job. They can't oversell the benefits of anything. But we think even Adam and Laurel are likely to be jaded in similar ways that jaded in the prospects that they see within cancer treatment at the point at which they've lived for far longer. They've probably known other people within their life who've gotten cancer and had really horrific deaths from cancer. So they're also likely to want to push Laurel to not take any, Susannah to not take any risks and just try to live out this last summer in the best way that she can. We think then that the comparative on our side of the house, so that's why she's not taking treatment. We think the comparative is that if you told your kids earlier on in the summer that you've decided to not take treatment and you're definitely going to die by the end of the summer, your children probably would have wanted to convince you to go into treatment options. The reason for this is that they just want their mom to, they want to give their mom every single chance at survival. They probably would have pushed her towards treatment because they're more optimistic because they're just kids in the first place. They want to give her every fighting chance. And we think Susannah is likely to have listened to them because often just your motherly instinct is that you want to listen to your kids. You feel very bad denying something of your kids. Like when your kids are literally saying, "Mom, you're dying. We want you to be around for longer. We want you to take that chance." We think Susannah would have probably deferred no thank you to their opinion. Why do we think then cancer treatment would have been helpful? We genuinely recognize that there are instances where cancer treatment makes your life a bit harder in the short term, but we think a couple of things here. Firstly, it's that Susannah would have felt less guilt about the fact that she didn't even try to be there for her children longer, and she would have felt happy that she listened to her kids and that they were on the same page at the end of her life on treatment. But I actually would posit that treatment would have made her, in most cases, feel her condition far better, or at least extend her life to some extent. This is because we see exponential improvements in cancer treatment right now. At the point which now AI is being used within cancer treatment, we're seeing different ways of attacking tumors, of diagnosing tumors. This is just an exponential improvement in research that is occurring. We already see this within scientific research generally, but specifically at this moment of time, it's because of AI, we think that's fast tracking at a very high rate. And also at the point at which she is at late stage cancer, she's open to She's open to undergoing more like experimental treatments that we think have like a high risk reward ratio. And we think in a lot of cases, it probably would have made her condition better or at least extend her life by like a couple of months or a year. Why does even this period of time, like living for a couple of months more, a year more, incredibly important to Susannah? Notice crucially that when you have children who are in their late teens, this is a very formative period of their life where they're going through a lot of new life events for the first time. So we think that if you live for a couple of more months, you could have seen Belly and Conrad go to prom for the first time. You could have helped them on their college applications. These are things when you envision your life as a mother, these are like cornerstones that you like see in your path as a mother to begin with. And we think we would have given her the chance of experiencing more of these things. So even if she may have been in more pain over the summer, the fact that she could have seen their first prom, their first kiss, the first time they went on a date in the first place, we think that would have been incredibly fulfilling for Susannah in ways that they're never able to access in their side of the house. Second extension then on why kids would have made worse choices on their side of the house and like actually perhaps ruin the summer tradition in the first place. And I want to note why this extension is good, because it's on opposition metric that Susannah just wants the best for her kids and to be happy. We're actually going to prove that her not telling them this is going to make them make like life-altering choices that hurt them in wrong ways. Firstly, we think the summer is the only time when children are able to actually grieve together and go through the conflicts of grief together. And I want to be very nuanced here. Dealing with grief is something that leads to a lot of conflicts between the people that are having to deal with it, especially children. So you often blame each other post death for not spending enough time with Susannah. For example, you talk about who has it worse. So who's having to deal with grief worse? Especially when you're like immature kids, grief leads to a lot of conflicts within your relationships with each other. Those conflicts on our side could have been dealt with during the summer when you're actually living in the same house, when you have adults around you to actually deal with those conflicts. The comparative on their side is that you find out, no thank you, about this issue right before you all leave and go to high school. You don't see each other again. We think then those conflicts are far more distant. You never resolve those conflicts. And what that means is that it's likely that this tradition is going to die. You don't want to see each other again the next summer because the last time you left, it was on such bad terms to begin with. So this isn't about helping them process grief in and of itself, because we think Susannah can have some conversations with her children right before she dies. This is about dealing with the conflicts that result from grief. She's never able to do that on their side. On our side, these children actually work together through their conflicts while they're living together in the summer, and that keeps the summer tradition alive to begin with. But the second thing is that the kids would have likely hurt each other on their side of the house. This is because these are like teenagers who are incredibly horny. Even though Belly and Conrad like each other, we think it's very likely that they're like in the summer, they're probably gonna like hook up with other people, and this is just hurtful to each other. Also, children are like bad at communication. So the fact that these two like kids have feelings for each other doesn't mean that they would have gotten with each other like eventually. Like there probably would have been a really big build up to this, and this just leads to their relationships straining. We think Susannah does care about Belly and Conrad getting together, because we think for a lot of mothers, it's this trope that you want to see your kids settle down, like find the love of their life, especially when it's someone that you like seen them, who you've seen like grow up with each other. So overall, the issue on their side is that you make more bad decisions. So Belly and Conrad wouldn't have gotten with each other for longer. They would have hurt each other, and we think this would have hurt Susannah a lot. Like not seeing her kids throughout the summer, like just hook up with other people and they just hurt each other. Whereas on the comparative, she probably could have told them and they would have like not hooked up with other people because they were like more like locked in. Probably seems to be
Thank you, member of government. Let's have the member of opposition.
Wait, I'm very sorry. I desperately need to use the bathroom. Can I just take 1 minute? I'm looking at my papers on the.
Sure. Sure.
No.
It's the default. Judging. Neutral. There's so many people have a tendency to like feel or you're very inhalation older. You're not this interesting. I did know, but that's no man. It's all true. And it's really God is so much in the group chat is between the not the group chat. So when it's clean, yeah,
Okay, completely unrelated to the case. Supposedly, Stephen went to Princeton. This round should also go to Princeton. A few things then. I want to clarify one thing at the top. Secondly, I'm going to take OG out of this debate entirely. Thirdly, on extension material. Firstly, I just want to say that if you reveal this thing now, if you reveal the imminent nature of your death right now, you're still likely to do it in a pretty strategic way. The new line and clarification from CO that you get is that you're very likely to not only be sensitive about this discussion and include like Laurel and Adam and other support systems, but you're also likely to have your kids defer to other support systems in the absence of you post your death. I'm going to explain what this looks like because it's a key part of the extension. Secondly, on OG then, I think their entire case is premised on the assumption that when you die or the moment before your death, you're more human than mother and therefore you're very self-interested. Two things. I think the line that is missing from OO that clarifies this metric in the debate is such that people have very, very different conceptions of their self-interest of what makes them happy. So at Princeton, there are people who want to work for Palantir and Jayesha. There are people who want to work for humanitarian aid organizations. Obviously, these two goals are incredibly different. Why is it the case that Susannah conceptualizes happiness as selflessly giving to her own kids? First of all, obviously, your children are your legacy. But secondly, we can infer from the Infoslide that she has already made a very selfless and valiant decision in order to keep like what is literally killing you from the people that you probably love the most. Per OG's own concession, when they assume that Conrad and Jeremiah have the ability to comfort her and make her life better in the last moments of her life, this probably already indicates that Susannah has chosen to keep her like imminent death away from the kids for some time to allow them to keep their peace of mind, and she weighs this above like them being able to comfort her in her own conception of her self-interest. So this demonstrates that her core decision-making calculus is one of selflessness. We also prove this better than OO because they just say that mothers care about their kids. On to extension then. I'm going to explain why this is a period of instability in the lives of literally everyone you love as Susannah. Telling them that you're going to die at the start of summer supercharges the tension in the relationships in your lives and allows them to implode. So under the metric of selflessness then, per my comment at the beginning, you ought to prioritize this as we literally account for every single person in the Infoslide, not Stephen because he's irrelevant. Few things here. Firstly, on your kids, whom you probably care about the most. I'm going to talk about Jeremiah and Conrad separately. Firstly, on Jeremiah, we accept that he's probably very, very unstable. This is for two reasons. First, there are key changes in his most proximal interpersonal dynamics. That's to say, one of his closest childhood friends, which is Belle, with whom he has countless childhood memories that are very, very happy, given that he participates in his chosen family tradition with her. People like Conrad, who are probably leaving Jeremiah out of his relationship with Belly, given that's a core tenet of them getting together. So they probably exclude Jeremiah as their key friend in this summer, and that's likely to feel very, very bad for him. But secondly, why is it also structurally likely, given the Infoslide, that Jeremiah probably also likes Belly to some extent? I'm going to prove this. You probably associate with her as Jeremiah with some of the happiest memories of your childhood. That's to say, your attachment to this individual is very pure and very, very enjoyable. Compared to other alternatives in real life, if we buy into CG's framing that all teenagers are very horny, she is probably better than alternatives such as like girls at your school who appear in your life on much more frequently and therefore have more opportunity to fuck up. They might say something that really annoys you. They might say something that really, really like irritates you and is very against your core values as a person. Conversely, your conception of Belly is very, very pure. It is characterized by all of your childhood happiness and the best of the memories of these summers that no one turned pretty. This is the comparative. And the reason that telling Jeremiah specifically is bad is that you supercharge his volatile emotional state and you probably force him to isolate himself from his two closest people that are likely to provide him support in times of need. But if you're able to tell your kids at the end of summer with the foresight that you're going to do this all of summer, you're more likely to want Jeremiah to establish closer and more permanent ties with Conrad and Belly, even if it is that Conrad and Belly enter into a relationship and have to exclude him in certain instances. Secondly, then, on Jeremiah, two layers here again. Firstly, he probably also reciprocally distanced himself from Jeremiah, who was probably the key relationship in his life. So like Jeremiah's probably giving him like the silent treatment or just giving them more space in order to be alone with Belly. That relationship itself distances because one actor distances himself, the other one also has no choice. But secondly, like if you know, the talking stage is very emotionally risky. You undergo a lot of emotional sensitivity. You're very, very emotionally volatile. It is incredibly scary because Conrad doesn't know whether he wants to risk the friendship that he currently has with Belly, which is very, very similar to the relationship that Jeremiah has with Belly, which, as I said, is one of purity and childhood happiness. They don't know, like he doesn't know whether this relationship is going to work out, whether they're compatible at the end of the day, and the certainty and anxiety is very difficult for horny teenage boys to stomach. Uniquely, you need to focus on allowing these two to work on their budding relationship as Susannah, because you see this as a long-term mechanism that allows them to grieve and allows them to recover from emotional turmoil. Thirdly then, on Laurel, who is literally your best friend, I would just say they have introduced a massive amount of tension and guilt between Laurel and her daughter. Yeah. The OG mechanisms on how it is incredibly scary and puts you in a miserable situation to have to lie to your kids all the time also applies to Laurel and Belly, given that Belly also sees Susannah as her pseudo mother. So you make Laurel miserable and make her grasp at straws on their side of the house to help Belly through her grief, and it's really bad, and you see your best friend being super, super sad. Lastly then, I want to analyze Conrad and Belly's relationship as a separate actor. I would note that this is an independent mechanism to ensure long-term grief recovery for both of them. Because when relationships are healthy, you have another person with which to discuss your grief, especially when both of you are close to that individual. I would also say just like the dopamine that you get from the honeymoon period is like pretty good and it raises your overall mental state. You need specifically to have Susannah facilitate this relationship because he knows the two of them the most. Why do we outweigh O on this? I think we capture the key analysis of the urgency and necessity of this summer and the permanent traumatic impacts he caused on their side of the house if he waits this summer. The first thing just to say that this is a chosen family tradition. There are positive associations and attachments with this beach house with the summer. But secondly, uniquely, this is the only time to resolve the massive changes and uncertainties from Conrad and Belly's budding relationship. I address this in the argumentation. This is by far the most important argument in this debate because not only do your kids look happy right now, which fulfills the metric of selflessness, but you also ensure that they have long-term support. On extraneous rebuttals to CG, then I think Connie will take care of this. But on the idea that you'll get treatment, I think you probably just don't die at the end of the summer. All this mechanism about how your kids can talk you out of things like talking into treatment still occur on our side of the house. They just happen at a later timeline. Lastly, I just want to know getting treatment for cancer is very, very rough. Chemo is miserable. You can still have palliative conditions like painkillers on our side of the house. All that's symmetric. Probably semi-enjoy your life still. Apologies and subconscious.
Thank you for proposition. Let's have the government whip to close out. Gov.
Yeah, I told you about it. Are you ready? Oh, also if you could POI, just say it. Like if you raise your hand, I probably won't. The key problem with the entirety of opposition bench is that they're extremely idealistic. OO tells you, almost verbatim, that you want their last memories of their mother to be vibrant and like the fact that she's thriving. Guys, she still has late stage cancer. Like her last memories are probably, as we proved to you, going to be of betrayal, confusion, and conflict and sickness. And these are the things that are going to be most impactful on her. These are the things that we uniquely mechanized to you on CG, right? But OG's case, almost entirely, I just want to flag at the top here. OG's case almost entirely relies on two things, right? Firstly, the idea that the last summer will be fine and Danny and happy, and also like their closing also relies on this idea. And we take this down largely in our first speech. I'll continue on this later. But secondly, it also relies on the fact that the kids won't know and therefore you don't betray this kind of trust, which we also proved why this was wrong, even though like our case doesn't rely on this in the first place. But crucially, to distinguish us from every other team in this debate, our case does not rely at all on like whether Susannah is self-interested or not, whether she views herself as a person or a mother, because we can prove to you that her lives and the way that her relationship with her kids manifests on their side of the house is harmful. According to the show, Conrad went to Stanford, and therefore this debate should go to Stanford. Three clashes I want to talk about in this debate. There are three things, right? Firstly, on the happiness of her children, if she is like that, like, very selfless and cares about her children. Secondly, on the relationship with her children. And thirdly, on our extension on how it's possible to survive, which I think like really wasn't engaged with to like a sufficient extent, right? Firstly, what I want to talk about is like the kids' relationship with each other and bad decisions, because this is a huge clash in the debate. What has the opposition told you as a whole, right? Told you that the imminent death is distressing and like mothers are very selfless, right? Kids have other things going on. Like, yeah, I want my kids to be happy, but I also hope they can like that they and most normal kids care more about and would want to spend more time with their dying mother than like with some girl that they grew up with, right? Even if they have like, even if she's very selfless and she wants to care for their future and like not burden them, Susannah probably understands these things are important, probably also understands life is going to be very bad for her kids either way and wants to spend time with them, right? I think this is a very natural, like motherly instinct that people want to deal with, right? But in terms of what CEO, like what they also tell you is that she doesn't want her kids to remember her as dying. Like your side forces the kids to face the shock of suddenly seeing their mom on a ventilator with no previous warning. And that's a traumatic memory that never goes. Knowing that at the end of the summer, they all go their separate ways. They don't live in this holiday home. They're not going to be able to spend as much time with their mother, for example, if they're going to college, if they're spending time in high school. The comparative is, on our side, you can process the image of her dying as far less traumatic because you have a bit of padding of this, because you've had time to like talk with her about this, right? What has CEO brought you on this? They told you that like, they gave this whole weird thing about like how Jeremiah also likes Belly and therefore everything is messy, etc., etc. But no, the relationship still exists. Like the relationship issues still exist, just later, and it's worse because on their side, it only happens and blows up after they go their separate ways, right? Presumably, it also gets worse if we assume on their side that Belly and Conrad's relationship goes well because Jeremiah feels more excluded, right? But again, like, they also say like this weird thing about how she doesn't die at the end of the summer and therefore they still have time to process. Like the point is they're not all still together. They live in completely different places. They're just geographically not in the same place, which makes processing of this much harder. Okay, what have we told you on this front then? We told you that the kids' relationship with each other is more likely to deteriorate because they're much more likely to want to withdraw, as people do when they're grieving, and it's easier to process this way. But importantly, these families are only together when like during the summer. If you tell them at the end of the summer, they will have to like grieve on their own and go their separate ways. ways, right? And it's much harder for them to interact with each other in this capacity. If they're in the same house, you can talk in passing, you can like knock on each other's door, and it's much more convenient to do so. On their side of the house, you have to like cold text, which a lot of people, like probably in this room, know is significantly harder than just knocking on someone's door. But there's also less conflict in the future, right? You don't have to speculate on what she would have wanted because you have time to talk that out on our side of the house. In opposition, they say, like, you need Susannah to set up Conrad and Belly, and therefore, like, they'll be happy. But we told you, and like, explained to you in our member speech why there are much fewer bad decisions made as she told them, right? Horny teenagers want to mess around during college, especially, like, given the rise, during college, during the summer, especially given the rise of hookup culture, right? Even if they like each other, they're uncommunicative. If they know Susannah will die, like, if you know your situationship's mother is about to die at the end of the summer, I don't think you're gonna want to hook up with another guy and make him really sad, right? Because this seems like something a lot more severe. You probably feel more guilty, and Belly won't screw him over in that capacity, and therefore the relationship is more likely to stay intact, even as friends, even if the romantic relationship doesn't blossom immediately, right? Okay. On the second clash then, very briefly on the relationship with their kids, I think this is like dropped slightly. But very briefly, what they said, like they said that you want to optimize time, which again, they assume these memories will be good. I think our first argument really clearly deals with this, right? But they also say that like you don't want to feel coddled as a mother. I think like firstly, there's a lot of teenage angst, especially if the situation in the household is complicated between Belly and Conrad, right? Which means that you're more likely to take it out with your mom, and fight with her because like this is what a lot of teenagers just do. There's more likely to change if like they know that she's about to die, right? Hopefully. But they would also want to know that like the kids aren't only spending time with her because she's dying. I think that's kind of ridiculous. Like she's lived with them. Surely she would know if they're only like they wouldn't spend time with her. They would only spend time with her when she's dying. Like I think there's enough to discard majority of O's case, right? In terms of mitigating pain and symptoms, I think like even if they somehow conceal all the symptoms of late stage cancer and we take them at their best case, like there are other ways and other loose ends that kids can pick up on this, and it's not very unlikely, right? You can overhear parents' conversations. You can like read an email from the doctor that popped up in a notification on your mother's phone. This is just something that's not that implausible. I think these are all things that like that none of the sides in this house have dealt with. Before I go on to the last thing, which is the more important things, yes, opening.
Yeah, I think this is all contingent. Like, you think Susannah, as someone whose health is deteriorating, is going to think of all these like worst case scenarios. Oh, I see like someone reads my email or something like that. But why would she rush to reveal? She would think about this and rush to reveal when she's not even personally ready to share that.
I mean, that's an assumption, right? That you're making that she's not personally ready to share that. You make the assumption that she's being irrational. But I also think that the greater fear that for your kids to not trust you because you know that there are a lot of loose ends going around, and you're afraid that if you don't tell them that you're going to die, they're going to be very mad at you. And I think this is a reasonable concern, right? But lastly, on what we've said on how she could have survived and why is the rebuttal that we've gotten on this not enough, right? They just told you that like it's not likely they're going to want to do this because you can deal with this at the end of the summer anyway. But we've told you all the reasons why cancer treatment is very likely to be achieved on our side of the house because the mother just wants to protect and be there for her kids. She wants to listen to her kids. And also cancer treatment is getting more and more effective, right? There's no treatment, no benefit would be offered on our side of the house. Treatments can improve and be adapted to the patient as the course goes on. And there's experimental improvements in scientific research, which means that there's a high likelihood that she can succeed, right? But what's the weighing on this in terms of this treatment? We've told you that this is important for two reasons. Firstly, Susannah cares a lot about seeing her kids' formative years and like the steps in her life. And kids aside, you get to live. People are very afraid of death. We think we just need someone to push her over that point, and that is going to be her kids. Very briefly on weight, we win over our opening because they have a lot of assumptions that their kids rely on, that their kids won't cope well. They don't explain this, that they're with guilt and paranoia. Our case doesn't rely on these things. We take down O by taking down all their mechanisms and see like largely the root.
Government with, let's have opposition with the close debate.
A person who only has months to live probably wants to maximize the amount of happy memories they can extract from this short window of time, and one of the prerequisites to this happening is keeping the peace. We're very proud to be CO. I firstly want to deal with CG's Hail Mary here on the kids convincing her to take the treatment option. We can also firstly, like Teresa identified, we can co-opt this, you can do this after the summer ends. We don't necessarily like realize that this window of time is very specific, but firstly, like irrespective of all of that, getting guilt tripped by your kids is emotionally terrorizing In order for CG's claim to work, the amount of emotional coercion that has to be in play here is borderline like horrific for Susannah. Like imagine your last bundle of your memories with your kids being of them blaming you for choosing to die because they're trying to convince you to take the treatment option. Firstly, there's no way in which this is within her interest and the way she wants to spend the last moments of her life. Secondly, given that time is a very sensitive clash here, again, this doesn't win on that mechanism. But secondly, the mechanism under this is just that AI is rapidly developing and will do wonders for cancer research. Guys, like, what? The burden of proof on this claim is just so incredibly high. You need to prove likelihood, but also that her rapidly deteriorating condition will outlast this waiting period. And also, panel, just gut check this. The American healthcare system is so fucked. Like experimental cancer research on is just such a fundamentally tenuously grounded claim. But thirdly, time and effort, and most importantly, money is very zero sum. So risk associated with this extension is just that this treatment will absolutely demolish your finances and your time that you could have spent doing something else and risk your kids having to sell this beach house, which you value very much as an actor, to pay for it. And despite all of that, still running into the risk of dying of cancer because it is a very destructive disease. But on the second argument, on like, we don't want the kids to fuck around. Firstly, I just want to flip this. Given that we also agree that, like, all teams here agree that this relationship happening is a thing within Susannah's interest, like, we can establish that, like, this is true. But secondly, like, how would Conrad and Belly in their world get together in good conscience when Conrad's mother is dying? So, like, at worst, this is a wash, but uniquely we're able to access benefits via our extension. On our extension, then, what did it prove? Why did it matter? Firstly, we filled in the missing incentive analysis from OO here. But secondly, just to rehash it, the last months you have to live are very precious moments in your life, and you want to maximize doing things like A, ensuring your kids and people you care about have a safety net of relationships and being able to rely on each other after your death because you care about all of these people. Secondly, being able to plot into the long term, i.e. influencing your kids to accessing long-term happiness because obviously your kids are people that you care about. Thirdly, and very importantly, to distract yourself from your cancer, which is taking up every living, breathing moment of your life. Like, honestly, despite like personally hating this show, I think it was very entertaining. So I'm sure Susannah thought the same while she was watching all of this unfold. And this is uniquely very valuable given that cancer exists across, like, you know, down the bench. But lastly, to not have to cause and witness this massive like trio of crash outs of young people dealing with grief, which is obviously a very stressful situation if it does happen. And again, not a very good use of your time to want to like, you know, like fix all of this conflict from happening. And you can also help aid this long-term safety net because again, this relationship doesn't preemptively end here and you're able to build it from the ground up. And there's a likelihood or a higher likelihood rather for it surviving into the long term when you have people who already established a connection that they can continue to move forward with their grief. And there's two reasons to us why our extension outweighs everything down the bench. It's that A, on scope, Susannah has more than two people in her life. We addressed Laurel, Belly, and to an extent Adam, who's also part of the family dynamic. So we're able to benefit her interest to ensure that all these people in her life have a good summer and recover from the grief, which outweighs like everyone on scope. But secondly, we give urgency analysis as to why this summer is the only thing that ensures her long-term stability within relationships. Susannah can get everyone to lock in. She has foresight that reveals at the end of summer and reveal at the end of the summer too. But secondly, Susannah has the capacity to lock everyone in because she knows all of these individuals and understands like things like Conrad's emotional needs and whatnot. But I think on strategy, again, it is very important to delineate ourselves from an opening half, regardless of whether or not she is found out. I think the deadlock breaker is to figure out her best interest because that is the prerequisite to accessing the best course of action. Because we think insofar as Susannah's access to her kids is quite symmetric, i.e. they literally live under one house like throughout a period of time, like where are they going to go? Like we win on that claim too. OG's claim is fundamentally riddled with contradictions. Let's look at their premises. Firstly, they tell us that like this debate is about personal fulfillment. We completely agree with this claim, but then they tell us that Susannah as an actor probably has selfish interests she prioritizes above others, like romance or kids. I'll take, opening.
Yeah, at the point in which we are Susannah, despite some past selfless decisions, I just get more time. It's the only concrete delta in this debate. 2 months is a lot when you think you're going to die from terminal illness.
Wait, like you're able to access like the same level of access that you have to your kids in both worlds. Arguably, you're able to access a better quality time in our world when you don't have to deal with like a lot of people in this house, like in this one house crashing out at you. It's a lot of people trying to emotionally guilt their kid. Second problem, I think this knocks out the entire argument that they premise like their winning line on, which is on guilt and paranoia, and notably CG also kind of runs into the same trap. Because if it is true that Susannah is inherently a selfish actor, as they claim, which we presume if we presume is true, then we would also think that you can operate with some degree of cognitive dissonance if you were Susannah, which is then the question is, why would she feel guilty for hiding the truth if she's actually very selfish? And this also deals with their claim on access to agency and on comforting individuals. Again, this is an unfair emotional burden on a person who's dying. And the implication of this is that they literally cannot have both things. What is likely to happen is that she can reconcile with the guilt that she feels by lying, by claiming that she's acting on the best interest of her kids and Belly and the people that she cares about because she's a selfless, loving mother. But her extension here proved more comprehensively as to why she's more likely to be selfless. But secondly, on the paranoia of being found out, because I don't think CG does a lot to address this claim either. I want to just first point out that the very obvious logical flaw here is that if we agree that she's paranoid, then we can assume that she's paranoid because the outcome of being found out by her kids and causing them pain puts her in an inconceivable amount of emotional pain. So logically, if this outcome is bad, why would then OG preemptively tell your kids in the first place? But the also very important response here is just the observation that her kids finding out is a non-argument because it is a non-risk. If her kids find out, then I guess we would access their benefits too. But insofar as that her kids don't, our benefits still stand and our incentive analysis is still independent of that. So uniquely on likelihood, we think there's a will. When there's a will, there's a way. I think given her incentives to maximize the summer, she's probably willing to represent and prevent any more intentional anguish from rising from it. For all those reasons, we're very proud to oppose.
Well, thank you everyone. Great debate.
Thank you.
Let's go. These are so funny.
Wait,
I loved it.
It was great.
That was great.
And just